Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Call to order, please. Roll call.
Mr. Chera, Mr. Antisano, Mr. Rhodey,
Yeah, here.
Dr. Lieutenant Widow, Mr. Duffy,
Here.
Mr. Good,
Here.
Ms. Close,
Here.
Mr. Judy,
Here.
Mr. Siano,
Here.
Mr. Lichtenstein, and Chairman Morelli.
Here. A salute to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requirements of the open public meeting law for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the notice having been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed in the office of the Township Clerk on May 24th, 2017. There is an emergency exit through the courtroom doors and the 2 exits at the rear of the room. There is a no smoking policy and no testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. All of these meetings will be video and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean's Community Cable Channel, Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 on Cablevision. All cell phones must be turned off, or if you need to make a call, please make your call outside the meeting room.
Can we note for the record that Mr. Chera is here?
Yes, please, for the record.
For the record, okay. All right, are we going to hear some resolutions, Sandy?
Yes, we can. Ms. Walensky is calling another 3 members, but I think we can proceed in her absence. I'll bring to your attention the nobility resolution. It has been posted on the board, but I want to do something slightly unusual. To refresh your recollection, the last of several hearings took place in April. You might remember just before the 10-day deadline, Applicants Council sent out a revised notice, and there were approximately 10 provisions in that notice requesting that the board make determinations to delete as conditions subsequent going forward provisions that had been in prior resolutions. That was distributed before the meeting to the professionals. As you might remember, we spent a lot of time that evening. We were arguably rushing to get it done after all the sessions that we had. And at the end, Applicants Council said that I should prepare the resolution, and if there were any issues that he and I would get together to resolve it. I did prepare the resolution, I think it was a couple weeks ago. There were some open issues, frankly. Bill, Jim, Marianne, and I met, and what you see in this relatively long resolution is an accurate, a summary of what the board had decided, with one substantive addition. If you have memorized the proposed resolution, you don't have to refer to page 17F. That provision says that the applicant shall make a payment to the Township Shade Tree Fund in the amount of $10,000. As the professionals looked at the summary of the minutes and thought of what transpired, we don't recall the board actually voting on that. However, I'll speak on behalf of Jim. His recommendation was that if asked, he would recommend that the board vote for $10,000 as the contribution. So it's therefore our collective recommendation that that's what should be voted upon. And again, Applicants Council was provided with this at least a week in advance. Actually, it was almost 2 weeks in advance, with a request that he get back in touch with me if he had any problems with it. The other refinements just dealt with procedure. And I don't even need to bother the board unless you want me to go into some of the details about plans for construction and the like. Those are the only comments I feel I need to make.
So are we ready to vote on this?
Yes, unless there are any questions of anybody.
I have a question. What was there a larger amount of money that was discussed? I mean, I think as I recall, the contribution to the Shade Tree Fund was going to be more than that, and
Yeah, there was two issues really. What I looked at is the fact that when they got their original approval,
Jim, could I make sure you get up close?
when they
Thank
got
you.
their original approval, they got a waiver of the tree location and preservation plan. And then it turned out the reason they got the waiver was because there were no trees to be removed. And so that they didn't have any obligation. And when I looked at what they had planted originally compared to what they're taking down and proposing now, it really was a wash. So what I tried to do is come up with a compromise between the wash and the higher number.
okay. All right.
Any other comments? No. Questions? And I guess we can proceed with the vote.
I also want to note Tony, or Mr. Indisano is also down here.
Noted.
Okay.
So will somebody make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. That would be me.
I'll second.
It was.
Okay, then I don't second.
I'll make
it.
a second.
Nice try.
Okay,
We're gonna play this game again.
Yes.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Ms. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Levy,
Yes.
and Chairman Bareilles.
Yes. Okay, the resolution is approved.
Yeah, we can do Hillel and then go on. to the
Certainly.
case.
Is there a motion on the Hillel resolution?
I don't think I'm eligible.
I'll offer.
Yep. Okay.
Second, please.
Second.
Mr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Mr. Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Ms. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Levy,
Yes.
Back up.
Yes.
All right, go ahead and start.
Okay.
Can we do the minutes while we're here?
We can do that at the end, Sheriff.
Okay, the first case this evening, or the case, is J&M Abeen LLC. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Robert Kasuba. I'm the attorney here from Biscayne Hoff on behalf of the applicant. We're here tonight for an application for preliminary and final site plan approval. This is part of the municipality's affordable housing compliance that was part of the lawsuit that was brought by the property owner of this site. There's a total of 72 residential units that are being proposed here, and there is a set aside for 11 of those units to be deed restricted for affordable housing for low and moderate income households in accordance with the settlement agreement and the zoning ordinance that was adopted specific to this zone. The zoning ordinance was the subject of extensive discussion with the municipality and was approved by the court. We're here tonight seeking preliminary and final site plan approval. As I stated before, there is one variance that we're requesting that relates to a change in the grade that will get more testimony from the engineer regarding that variance. I have with me this evening 3 witnesses that we intend to have testify. One is our architect, Tom Brennan. Second witness is our civil engineer, and the third witness is our planner. Although the variance relates substantially on engineering issues, we thought it was appropriate to have a professional planner here as well, just to discuss the planning proofs under the municipal land use law for the variance. unless the board has any initial questions, I'd like to just dive on into the application and present our first witness. And I will also note for the record, we did receive 2 review letters, one from the planner, one from the engineer. There has been some discussion between our civil engineer and the board's engineer regarding some of the issues raised in that review letter that I'll defer to the engineers to discuss when we get to that part of the testimony, but it's certainly my understanding that there's been a lot of, there's been some shifting and some movement, and I think that there's much more common ground regarding some of those technical issues than what was maybe relayed upon a first reading of that engineering review letter. So without further ado, I'd like.
Before you start, if I may just interject for a moment. My name is Bernard.
Can I ask you to speak to the
Yeah, sure.
microphone? It's also not just for amplification, but for recording.
Right.
Thank you.
My name is Bernard Riley. I'm the attorney for Properties 21, which is the body motion property at the end of Cindy Lane, which is really abutting the subject property. Some of you may recall I was here a year and a half ago when the property across the street was, and my client was here. Unfortunately, he's out of town on business, but I'm here in his stead for the moment. As some of you may recall who were members then, he had 2 objections really, the traffic, and frankly, I understand the property is zoned for what it is, and there's a limit to what you can do about traffic, but there is a concern about it. But the main problem that he has, and which I think is not in any way really addressed by the reports, at least from the engineer's review.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
object
can I
to
ask
this
why
at
he's
this
having
point.
this
This is-
conversation? Yeah,
Well,
I'm
because
gonna
I'm making a
This is-
threshold objection. The plans are not the plans are not adequate.
This is highly inappropriate at this point.
Why
This
is it
is,
inappropriate?
I don't appreciate the hand gestures. Please.
Relax,
Please.
will you? Relax, make your objection. Make your comment.
No, you're making an objection.
Oh,
It's
you're
not,
interrupting.
it's inappropriate. This is our application. You're the one that's interrupting, sir.
I'm entitled to make my
No,
threshold
you're not.
objection.
You are entitled,
Let the
unless
board
it's a
attorney.
notice issue.
Mr. Chairman, let me see if I can assist both counsel here. Mr. Riley, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Mr. Kasuba, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, but welcome to our board. I think, Mr. Riley, you were about to talk about drainage. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, I am.
Let's see if I can assist the process. I'm a little behind here. I just returned from a vacation basically this evening. But I understood that based on the report from our engineer, which I haven't read quite frankly, that there are some concerns about drainage. Is that fair to say? I also understood that there was some dialogue about having a tech review meeting, maybe even before this hearing, whether or not I received that accurately or not. If I am correct about the summary in the engineering report, there are issues, substantive issues that differ from what's proposed to what you're suggesting. Is that fair to say or not?
Well, I made some recommendations that I think ease some of the concerns that I had because I didn't
Okay.
want to be critical without some type of a solution. And they mostly dealt with the road grading.
Okay.
I don't think that's an issue that, I won't speak for Mr. Riley, but I don't think it's an issue that he or his client are concerned about
All right.
per se.
Mr.
I also
Kasuba.
have, okay.
Okay.
I had some issues about the support information provided for the detention basin design and how it relates to the recent approval that was granted on the adjacent site, one that's across the street for the Cindy Lane Family Ventures, which hasn't not been resolved because it requires probably a technical review and a plan of action to maybe take a look at the groundwater table in a little more detail, because there's some substantial differences between 2 studies 100 feet away, and there are substantial differences between 2 numbers obtained in this one site 100 feet away, and I have concerns that it doesn't seem easy to swallow that.
Right. Mr. Kasuba, I know you haven't been before our board. this particular,
Mr. Kasuba, can I ask you to put the microphone in front of you? We have a terrible problem with the system in sometimes it picking up everybody if it's to the side of you. Thank you.
I saw you were shaking your head in a negative way, but this board usually,
I don't know what you mean by shaking my head in a negative way, responding to what comment?
let me just proceed. So I want to make sure you have a comfort level. The way we usually proceed is that we have our planner provide a summary, and then we have our engineer. So our engineer on all applications would basically say what he just did. I'm trying to expedite this, and what I'd suggest, but it's subject to you, it is your application. If you want to restrict your testimony tonight to your experts, and in terms of the issues that Mr. Fitzgerald referred to, if you want to defer them and have a tech review meeting afterwards, maybe that'll expedite the process. Is that fair? Do you think?
I think, with all due respect, what I would like to do is actually put on the witnesses. I think that there are many questions that were raised in the review letter that we have answers to and can provide those to the board. If at the end of that testimony, if there's still an outstanding issue regarding stormwater management, that's something that we can discuss at that time. I don't want to agree to that now at the outset.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that in response to the review letter, there was a communication between the engineers, and it's my understanding that there was, I'll use a generic phrase, progress was made regarding an understanding of what the board engineers was asking for and the information that our engineer had.
Okay.
However, it's not for me to, advocate for whether the board is satisfied, whether the board's engineer is satisfied with the information that our engineer has. But it is, stormwater managed, I'll just, in response, stormwater management was obviously one of the issues that was raised regarding the review letter. There was another question that was raised regarding the boulevard access drive and changing the grade there that resulted in some shifting, if you will, for lack of a better way of saying it, of some of the things. And our engineer did look at that. And I think that we have a solution that might work. We don't have all the detailed drawings for that, and I don't think your board engineer has had a chance to review that. But it was my hope that we could make substantial progress on these issues, and if there's an open issue, we can address that, when we come to it. But we're not.
Okay.
I think it.
So, again, I've been doing what you are doing tonight for 40 years. I know different boards have different styles. I'm just letting you know that the chairman's now going to ask the planner and the engineer to give their summaries or read their reports sometimes. Mr. Riley, I interjected because you made an objection, but I would suggest that we know what your objections are, and let's have...
If I may just state my objection, I promise I'll be brief.
I'll just say if it doesn't go to completeness or notice, it's improper for the board to hear him at this time.
There's no rule of that. I've been doing this for 40 years, and there's no rule of that.
I think you've been doing it more than 40 years.
I have been, 44 to be
Yes,
precise.
exactly.
It's gonna taint our ability to present the application. There's no evidence that's been submitted on the record.
All right.
No, I can't just let him go. The stormwater is a real problem in that area.
Sure.
His
Objection.
stormwater management plan
Objection.
is incomplete.
Objection.
You said your objection, right? His stormwater management.
Sustain it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sustain the objection because I think you're coming too soon to this. I really do.
All right, well, then, if you sustain, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me just suggest that we follow our normal procedure and mark the packet B1 and begin with the experts' reports, and then we can let Mr. Kasuba present his application.
That would be fine.
I've marked the packet as B1 with today's date.
Okay.
Jim,
I'll
would you
read
like to
some
give
and
your
I'll
report?
summarize
Thank you.
some. The application is for 72 residential units in 3 buildings of 24 units each. There's going to be 18 one-bedroom and 36 two-bedroom units and 18 three-bedroom units. A load of the units are going to be affordable as required by the ordinance. The site's a 5.99 acre irregularly shaped lot. It was formerly the West Park Auto Recycler site. It's accessed by Cindy Lane, the Cindy Lane extension. It's bordered by residential uses to the south and to the southeast, vacant land to the west and the north, and they recently approved multifamily development that this board heard not too long ago to the immediate east. It's zoned MIR1, which allows multifamily dwellings and townhouses on minimum 5-acre lots, and requires that 15%, if it's a rental units, which these are going to be apparently, requires 15% of the total units be affordable, and 13% of the affordable units have to be very low-income units. It meets the requirement for the affordable units, which is 11, but it's not clear whether it meets the requirement for the 13% very low-income units. That'll have to be testified to be confirmed. Variances, there are actually 4 variances necessary as the application is currently presented. There's the soil removal for the two-foot change in grade. And the reasons for that are aesthetics and also for drainage and any other impacts that could possibly result. I'll defer to Bill as with regard to the impact on drainage. The only concern I have with aesthetics is that on the eastern side of the building, there's parking spaces that face the detention basin. You have a barrier guardrail, for lack of a better word to describe it, and then it drops right down into the detention basin. There's no landscaping or anything in that area to soften it. I think something needs to be done to provide some landscaping there. The Environmental Commission has also requested some landscaping around the detention basin. So I think that can be done. Second one is for location of curb cuts. Curb cuts are supposed to be in the center, 1/3 of the lot. As I look at the application, the curb cut is at the extreme southern end of the site frontage, not in the center of the site frontage, but it's the only place it can be. So I don't have a problem with that. That requirement is really more for a site that's on a through street or on Route 35. This is almost a dead-end type situation. So I don't have a problem there. There's a variance necessary for providing the required 4 inches of mulch. The details say 3 inches. That should be corrected to show 4 inches of mulch. And there's a variance for the design of the landscape plan. The ordinance requires that a licensed landscape architect design the plan. The plan was not designed by a licensed landscape architect. In this instance, the Environmental Commission thinks the plan is fairly good. They have some recommendations for relocation of some of the plants and some additional plantings around the detention basin, but otherwise I don't have a problem with the landscape plan as presented. Waivers, is a waiver for sodding. It says that all lawn areas are going to be seeded. The ordinance requires they all be sod. My recommendation is that it be sod around the buildings, but the balance can be seeded. It doesn't make sense to sod the whole site, particularly the detention basin. The underground sprinkler system's required. There's no indication that one's going to be provided. That should be provided in all landscaped and lawn areas. Buffer plantings, the ordinance requires that all buffers be planted with a minimum of a staggered double row of evergreen trees spaced 10 feet apart and 10 feet on centers. The buffer plantings, I wouldn't say, there's buffer plantings, they're nice, but they don't meet this requirement. I think you do need some supplementation of those buffer plantings to make them more of a solid buffer. The tree size, the ordinance requires the caliper be measured 1 foot above the root crown. The plans say 6 inches above the root crown. That should be corrected. I've had some problems on other applications recently where the contractor misread the plans and wasn't providing the right size tree because he thought it got measured more towards the bottom of the tree. Street tree plantings, the ordinance requires street trees to be provided on all frontages at 40 foot on centers. It doesn't provide the required street trees along portions of St. Rogers Lane, but that's a paper street and it's probably not likely to be improved in the foreseeable future, so I don't have a problem with that waiver. The other comments I would have are that the applicant has offered to pay the $31,150 that is necessary to the Township Shade Tree Fund because of the shortage of replacement trees. The only comment I have there is if additional plantings are provided, additional trees are provided, that number may be reduced a little bit. There's 10 garage parking spaces on the southern side of the site. And my feeling is that garage should be moved 5 to 10 feet to the south to allow for more turning radius for cars that want to enter that garage. It doesn't result in the garages are situated I think it's 81 feet from the property line. A 50-foot buffer is required, so that if they get moved 5 or 10 feet, you'll still have more than the minimum buffer that's required. The other comment I have is it's a technical thing in their ordinance, in their table in the ordinance. They say that they're providing a buffer on the south of 85.1 feet. Actually, the play area is about 55 feet from the property line, and the buffer has to be between the play area and the property line, so that table should be corrected to say that the buffer being provided is 55 feet. It still complies with the 50-foot requirement.
Thank you. Bill, would you like to give your report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated June 21st, and I'll summarize it. Try to give the applicant the benefit of a special meeting if we end up practicable. So I'll try also not to be redundant with Jim's. I'm going to skip right to page 2 of mine, item 7. In item 7, I simply suggested that as part of the presentation, the applicant bring a board or an exhibit illustrating not only this proposed development, which is shown pretty well on the plans, but also adjacent developments and houses on adjacent or nearby residential properties. It will show how this fits or doesn't fit. Well, how it fits into the neighborhood with respect to other structures and nearby facilities. And I believe they agreed to do that. Item 8, I just had a question about the 2 5-story garage buildings at the southwest corner. I'm sorry.
Not 5-story.
5-car.
Did I say 5-story? I'm sorry.
No, that's,
The 2 1-story 5-car. I would have a concern. Sorry about that. I just didn't see the point of them. It was 72 apartments to have 10 parking spaces that take up 120 feet. It just seemed a little inequitable to me if something better could be done. So I tried to throw a suggestion that cured a couple of things in my mind that I thought the board might consider. We can talk about that as they make their presentation, and there's a board up to show it. The entrance to this particular development comes at a point where Cindy Lane more or less makes a hard right, almost 90-degree turn as it heads west and then north and then west again as sort of Walter Raleigh Boulevard or wherever it is back there. At one point that was going to be a connector with Hidden Meadows, and the thought was even that it could connect to West Park Avenue. That's been quite a while, early 2000s, maybe late 1900s. May never happen, but my concern was, number one, 10% grade is a little steep. I'm mixing and matching, but I think they can soften it by playing with some of the improvements a little bit, and I'll let their engineer. I just don't like the 10% coming down because we don't know what's going to happen down the road. Right now, their entrance will be the major leg of that intersection. However, 20 years from now, someone may elect to go back to that other concept, in which case this would be a minor leg, and having it come at 10% slope is not a good idea. Having said that, most of these things are boilerplate in terms of the fire marshal and the striping of stalls. It's ordinance requirements. I did say in number 13 on page 4, more architectural and engineering, but when I look at the layout of the building halls, if the buildings were widened, 6, 8 feet, whatever it was, the common halls could go out to the rear yard areas also, so all the residents from the building could access, what would be rear yard recreational areas directly without having to walk out the front and all the way around. It was just a thought. We're not saying you have to do it, but it just seemed like a good idea. I've lived in garden apartments in Ocean for many years in my earlier times, and it just was convenient. I also thought in 14 that the only one refuse storage area about as far away from some of the apartments as you can get on the site was not adequate. I thought a second one, caddy corner across the site, would be a real benefit if it could be worked in. Item 16, I think Mr. Kasuba alluded to this one, requires a variance, or they requested a variance for a change of grade of 2 feet. Part of the justification was that there's a high water table and you need to do stormwater management. If we get a good stormwater management plan, I always support the change of grade because to me it's worth it for the benefits far outweigh the detriments. We do have some concerns along those lines, but we'll get into that. In 17, I expressed my where I had concerns regarding the support information. And the key item is item D, where there are 3 soil logs within a total length of 117, 116 feet, and the high water tables differ by almost 3 feet. And the site next door, which is on the same elevation datum purportedly, has a stormwater basin 100 feet away, and that seasonal high water table was 2 feet lower than this seasonal high water table, approximately, or a little bit more, depending on which one of these you pick. And within 200 feet to have seasonal high water tables varying anywhere from 2 to 4 feet just simply doesn't make physical sense. And we have had, over the years, a number of seasonal high water table determinations that, so I'm not trying to pick on anybody, we've had at least a half a dozen experiences where seasonal high water table determinations didn't prove good, and we ended up with basins with soggy bottoms and swamps had to be redone. Some couldn't be, some are now permanent lakes. So because of our experience, we get a little nitpicky over this one. We just want to, we're not saying that, in fact, I told our engineer, if I was in these shoes, I would do the same strategy. My concern from this side of it is I just want to be sure that it works when all is said and done. So we just want to be sure that with these variations that seem to be appearing, it's got to be closer than that. We need to determine better why there's so much variation over 200 feet. It simply geologically doesn't make sense. Having said that, you know, as I said, once the stormwater management plan is finalized, if it does what we need it to do, I have no problem engineering-wise with a 2-foot change in grade. Actually, I think the site's pretty well laid out generally. With site lighting, I just wanted to point out in 21 that we have a regulation regarding illumination levels on off-site properties. So we haven't been real generous with variances from the site lighting ordinance. I think it may be able to be, I don't want to use the word corrected, that's a bad word, mitigated by maybe factory installed shields, or I noticed they're LED lighting. LED lighting anymore, you can aim almost any way you want if you just tell your manufacturer what you need. But I would request the applicant seriously consider not going for a variance for illumination levels on off-site properties. It's just not the best idea. And then they have 2 wall-mounted fixtures in item 23 that are not full cutoffs, but I mean, that's easy to fix, just pick 2 different fixtures. I think the rest of the stuff is boilerplate until we get to item 30. Just want to talk about 1 or 2 things in there in general. Obviously, like any applicant, they have to go get all their outside agency approvals. I'm assuming they're going to have an approval at some point here because this is a conforming use. So it's only a question of ironing out engineering details, and it's not a problem. Having said that, I think I'm suggesting tonight when the applicant's engineer makes his testimony that there's some presentation of the types of permits they need. I didn't try to list them all, but I'm not sure whether they have their wetlands or not. I don't know whether they have a phase 1 done for the site and if remediation is required, or if it's not, if they have a letter of no action, no interest with regard to the prior operation on the site. It wasn't a residential operation, so putting residential here needs some clarification, certainly along those lines, and all the other agency approvals. So if we could just talk through them and where they are when he makes his testimony, that would be good. The rest of it is boilerplate, so let the applicant have his time now.
Thanks, Bill. Mr. Kasuba.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Would like to
Chairman.
proceed at this point?
Yes, thank you. We'd like to have our architect.
Would you raise your right hand, please? You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Full name for the record, please.
A full name, let me get to the microphone. Full name is Thomas Brennan.
Can you give the board the benefit of your background and experience in the field of architecture?
Yes, I am a graduate of New York Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Architecture degree. I've been practicing for about 30 years. I am licensed in New Jersey along with New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and a couple other states. And I've have not been before this board, but I've been before many boards in the state of New Jersey.
Ask that the board accept him as an expert? in
Yes,
the
we will,
field.
sir.
Thank you. Could you provide an overview of the architecture of the buildings that are proposed?
Sure. Do we want to mark the exhibits or?
Yeah, as you discuss them, does that microphone work?
That
Is
one
that
works.
Should.
Okay, might be easier for you to stand over there.
That's okay. I'm not a singer by heart.
Just mark it as A1 as you.
Mark this one.
Okay, the first thing is if you're not gonna take it out, then you always have to stand in front of it. So, because when you say things, it won't pick up on the recording.
Sir, can I ask you a favor? I'm in the worst seat. Can you back that up maybe a foot?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know, cause I don't know if we have. There we go.
Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that. Oh, geez.
Everybody
You
see
guys
it
good over there? Oh, nice. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, can you identify what that is that you've marked as A1?
Yes, this was prepared by the civil engineer, but I wanted to at least reference it so that when I'm referencing my architectural buildings and I reference them as building A, B, you'll be able to understand it. So basically, as I point to this is the site plan that the civil engineer will be discussing later on. But there's 3 buildings here.
Just for the record, if it Exhibit A1, if you could mark it as Exhibit A1.
Yes, it's marked as A1 up there in the
Okay.
top, so.
Okay, and it's identified as the site layout rendering plan that was colorized, just for the record.
Well, it's not though, because it's superposed on an aerial also, which is not on your site layout plan in your plan sets.
I was just correct.
Oh, I just want to be
Correct.
clear.
You are correct.
Yeah,
Excuse
but
me, and I'm gonna be even more obnoxious. I need to know, is there a date for it?
Yes, the date is 6/27, 2017 in the bottom right. Was prepared by
Hammer engineer.
Cindy Lehman.
Hammer Land Engineering, and it's titled Site Layout Rendering Plan for this site. It's colorized, aerial, as
Clear.
everyone has mentioned.
This is where I went.
Okay, so basically the only reference that I have toward this is so you can acclimate to the 3 buildings that are here. As you can see, there are 3 24-unit buildings. The building type B is the one that's further to the south here, and the one to the north, and the one in the middle is building type A. There on the south side here is the 5 one-story garages. I didn't want to reference that wrong. The 5 one-story garages, which are was discussed previously. So basically, that's all I wanted to discuss here. The civil engineer will actually go through it in detail. So this particular exhibit will be Exhibit A2.
Well, is it a sheet of the set of architectural plans?
Yes, it is.
For our space purposes, we would probably prefer for you to identify it by a sheet, and we'll mark the whole set as A2. So which sheet is that you're referring to in A2?
That's D2.
B2, and it is in this set,
Yes.
Yeah.
and I'm just double checking, and is there a date on this?
Yes, the date is
I have it in my report, Jim.
2/13/2017.
Thank you.
If I may ask, is it the board's practice to mark exhibits that are already part of the submission application as well?
Not unless you introduce them.
Okay. But otherwise, we don't need to go through and mark each thing. It's only if a witness is discussing it that you want to.
Correct,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it's just, Those don't fit in file drawers.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure I understood. I didn't want to
Got it.
have to mark everything unnecessarily.
No, I just have a nice little pile here in case you want to.
Thank you.
Okay, and for referencing this, let me see if I can pull that off. Okay.
I have a different date on that exhibit, just to be clear, so we don't have a problem. I have 1/12/17.
Yeah, so do I.
So do I.
Okay.
That's why I was asking.
Well, it would be the same. It's, I guess it's just my office had marked it 213. So if it matches up with one, it would be the same exhibit. It just had the wrong, has a wrong date on it, I guess. They had put on a new date when they made this exhibit.
So the D2 I have mentioned is, that I've marked, is 1/12/17. I'm gonna leave it that way.
Okay.
I think Mr. Brennan's indicating that that sheet, other than the date, conforms in every way with sheet D2 of Exhibit A2.
That is correct. It's the same drawing, just the wrong date. So again, this is an exhibit which references the building plan. The building plan consists of 24 units in a 3-story configuration. It consists of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and some 3 bedroom units. I will kind of describe with my pointer here. There are staircases that come in here. I'm pointing to the right side of the building. Off of this staircase, there's a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and a 2 bedroom 2, which is a corner unit. So there's a couple different types of units in a 2 bedroom. There's a standard 2 bedroom unit, which has living, dining, kitchen, and a smaller bedroom and a master bedroom. And it has 2 baths. And then there's a 2B2, which is a corner unit, and that particular bedroom has a combination living, dining, kitchen, large areas, and then 2 more equal-sized bedrooms. And that's just for marketing purposes to generate a diversification in the market. There's also the 1-bedroom unit, which is in the middle, and that one has the combination living, dining, kitchen, and in the 1 bedroom and in the 1 bath. And of course, all these will have washer dryers. They will all have water heaters. They're also designed to have what they call the Magic Pack heating and cooling, which is basically out on the balcony, and it's self-contained, and there are no, by doing something like that, you don't have to provide the air conditioning condensing units that you typically see in a lot of apartments. So it's a self-contained unit, it's a high efficiency unit, and it's geared in, we provide it in many of the apartments that we do. The building, as they stand right now, it meets all the criteria for fire and safety. It has the fire stairs. The building also will have a NFPA 13R sprinkler system throughout the entire building. So it's a 3-story building. It meets the building codes requirements for life and safety issues. And there will be a sprinkler manifold, I guess you call it, that would be right in the front of the building. So it would, you know, pretty much satisfy the fire marshal as far as access to the building. Heaven forbid they needed to access the building for fire purposes. This is our rendering. It was not in the sheets that we had provided, but it's an exhibit which I guess we're going to mark A3.
Correct.
And this one, because we just prepared it a few days ago, has a date on it that's 6/27/17.
And it's a rendering of a particular building, or
Yes, it's a rendering of the typical Building A, which I just described.
building A?
And I wanted to talk about the exterior materials. The elevations will have a combination of brick, which is the darker red-brown that you see color on this rendering. And then the siding will be a vinyl siding, which is a gray color, a lighter gray color. And then up in the gables, we actually have cedar impressions, which is another vinyl type material, which gives it a little bit of architectural interest. So again, as you can see, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of movement. The balconies move in and out as far as providing shadow lines and things of that nature. And the entrances are defined in an area that would have a little bit of metal roof on them as well. So that's the description of the building. For the most part, it's we think it's a very attractive building. It would fit the residential needs of this community, and that was our interpretation of what should be there on the site. So.
I had a couple questions if I can.
Sure.
Can you put the floor plan up again? And maybe just put the site layout up, just really quickly. That's it. One of the things that I thought was really good about the way the development is laid out is that between the two buildings to your left, there's a nice yard area. And then which is like a rear yard to each of those, because the fronts of those, one's on the south, the other's on the north. And then on the building farthest north or to the right, that also has sort of a private rear yard area, if you will, that backs up to the wetlands buffer and all the wooded area back there. It's going to stay. The neighborhood is going to be a little more dense than most neighborhoods. And my thought was that when I looked at the floor plans, if you could get that up a second, every first floor, I don't believe any of the units has direct access from the outside. All units, and Mr. Brennan can correct me if I'm wrong, all units obtain access from a hall inside the building. And each building first floor has two L-shaped halls. If you could point them out, that would be real helpful.
These are the stairways that he's referring to.
But that also provides hallway to doorway entries to each of the units, correct? So I guess where I was going is it seemed to me that with a little tweak, those maybe a couple of units that are just on the upside of the hallways could be spread, and a hallway take you out from the interior of the building right to the rear yard area. Is that something that's possible or not? It would just be desirable.
It's subject to opinion. I mean, some people prefer something like that. Again, this is such a small community that if you're in this building, it's not a big thing to, as you saw on the site plan, to just come out and walk around. I don't know what that, besides from the grassy area, there's a tot lot over on the other side. So the whole community with 72 units, you're going to interact. I don't think there has to be a designated area that says, well, you must go this way to get out there. The other thing that we, kind of like the idea that, these balconies that do face that area, when you go out onto your balcony, you are experiencing that green area, that green area space. So
with no people on it. Is that what?
Well, we don't know what they'll use that grassy knoll area for, but it's. But that's, it's not something that we felt and marketing felt that they needed to actually have a direct access to. That the community is small enough that you would be able to achieve that by just walking to it. And
I have a question.
Yes.
On the color rendering that you
Now,
have.
can you put your microphone down? Thank you.
The color rendering that you have, that would be reflective on both sides of the building, meaning that they're on one. Would be facing which way?
This would be facing the parking lots, the front of the building.
And what is the back of the building, if you will, look like?
The rear of the buildings would be the gray siding, the combination of the cedar impressions and the gray siding that would be here.
You good? I gotta follow up.
No, I'm just wondering what the Would you mind showing the chart that has the layout of all the buildings again? I'm just wondering what one building is gonna be looking at and the other.
I think she meant the site plan.
Site plan.
Oh, the site plan.
So if you could just show me what your color rendering is showing, what side would they be facing?
Sure, the color rendering would be a perspective, and I'm pointing here to building A, or pointing here to building B, and pointing here to building B. So this is the fronts of the building. They would, they would pretty much have the rendering the way you see it. The sides of the building or the rear of the building would have the same vinyl materials and vinyl impressions. Yeah.
But no brick.
No, at this point we weren't proposing any brick on those. And I have here another exhibit. I guess this is
Which sheet
A4.
is that?
This is D1. This is
It's already marked as part of.
yeah. Okay, we don't need to mark it. Okay. But this is in this set. This shows the elevation of the front, which obviously does not have any color, so it's a little bit difficult in black and white to describe it. But this is the front of the building. At the bottom is the rear elevation, and as you can see, it has the same vinyl siding and it has the vinyl impressions in the roof line. So it's going to have the same materials, the same colors. It's just around the rear of the building.
The problem that I have with that, just thinking about it, is that when you come up the boulevard, the intersection of the interior roads is jogged to the right some, which I was hoping we could get squared away a little bit. But having said that, you're looking at the sides of the buildings, and they have no brick on them. And that's what most people are going to see as they come to the place. So at least the east sides of the building should have brick. Just, I mean, from my perspective. And then the the southerly building B, if you make a left, which most people will, because that's where most of the parking is. Again, you're looking at the back of the building instead of the front of the building.
Again, as I point to, this is the side of the building. It does have brick in the front, which captures the brick on the front of the building. I'm sure the applicant would be willing to provide some. The brick that's on the front of the building would easily be able to be provided on the rear part of the elevation, so that there would be more brick on the building as well. So I'm sure the applicant would be willing to do that. So.
Can I ask a follow-up question to what Estelle asked?
Rob,
Sorry.
you want to hear you on TV.
Yes. So that rendering, that plan shows for the entrances, at least the one we're looking at, does not have the V shape over the doors. So if you put your color rendering back up and compare it to that, nope, yep. I just want to make sure we know what we're getting. So the entrance to the doors there has a nice roof with a V shape to it. Your plans don't? Yes.
These here would be representative of this area right here. There's one here and there's one over here. Those are the two entrances to the building.
Right, but
You have different.
you have different plans then,
Ours
because
are
your
different.
plans don't have, this plan doesn't have that. Does it? Am I missing it?
Flat.
Flat.
No, not there.
We take a look at the plan.
Okay, that was a flat roof that was there initially, and then we went ahead and made the triangular peak there to embellish the entrance to make it more nicer, I guess you might want to call it. So.
Just want to make sure we're getting.
Can I
Yes.
also say that since we're gonna have to do something to get the plan so that what you want is what we're getting, when you look at the elevations here for the front, you don't, it's not apparent that there's brick there. It calls out vinyl cedar impressions on the front, but it points to brick, but it's drawn as though it's not.
Yeah.
So I think you
Yeah.
probably need to clear that up.
Plans
because-
aren't clear.
Yeah, this down here does represent brick, and the brick, or, the lines are closer together, and the siding has lines spaced farther apart.
Not on
Really?
our drawings.
It's just
Hmm.
not
We'll have
clear.
to take
And,
care of
and the other thing is that the plans we have actually show brick on the ends of the building, and the area that you said that you'd be willing to put brick. The plans we have show brick there.
Okay?
If that's brick.
Only on one side, yeah.
Brick.
Well, then it's brick on the rear.
That's the side, that's the side.
Do we,
Yeah, yeah.
well, do we want to just use the exhibits then for what we have? We can provide new exhibits if some, for purpose of what you've described or looked at, or?
Well, I think what they'd be looking for is a set of revised plans where it's called out a little more clearly exactly what's what,
Okay.
and that matches the details that they liked in your rendering.
Mm-hmm.
The gable roofs and the little.
Yeah, I mean, the gable roofs was added to get more character to it.
That's the way they like it.
Yeah, and the brick is identified. It's just maybe graphically it's a little bit hard to read and it could be a printing concern when they printed up it may not have printed properly, and I apologize if that's how it happened. But we pride ourselves in trying to have accurate information. So
It just needs to be clear when it's being built, so that there's no discrepancies or.
well, again, this is the latest drawing that we have, and this is what we are proposing. So it will have the brick as you see it. It will have the cedar impressions. It will have all the information that you see on this particular rendering. So
That's why I got confused, I thought this was the plan. Even though it said plan.
How difficult would it be for you to provide a graphic representation of the ends of the building and the rear of the building similar to the color one you have here?
yeah, I'm sure we could do that.
I
Yes.
think that would help the board visualize it much better.
Okay. All right.
If there's no other questions on those issues, there was also a question in the review letters regarding garages.
Yes. I have exhibits here that are 11 by 17.
This was not part of the package submission, but if we could mark one of these as exhibit, what do we have to, A4?
A4, yes.
Yes. This will be for ID only, it wasn't in the packet, is that correct, Council?
It's not in the packet, that's correct.
So it's for ID only then?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned that they're required to be spread at some point so they can
Yep.
just supplement it with this and.
We can just pass them down.
Thank you.
Could you describe what is exhibit,
Sure.
A4?
A4, A5. Oh, A4, excuse me. Yes. A4 is an exhibit showing the 5-car, 1-story garages, and they all have individual garage doors. In the middle of the drawing shows what would be the front of the garage, and the top of the page would represent the side of the garage, and then there's two elevations showing the side of the elevation. So I don't know if I said side or rear on the top, so that would be the rear. So that would represent on the site plan the 5-car, and there's two building types that are like this. They're both identical. So
Question, what's the, this is the VIP parking? Is that what that is?
yeah,
What's the purpose for it? You have,
well, basically the marketing.
Tom, do you
Yeah.
want to have John answer? If you, well, why don't you stand up and just introduce yourself? That's more of an operations question. This is, you're gonna need the microphone.
John Abeen, the developer proposing it.
Excuse me, counsel, if he's going to testify, which he is, yes, yes. Raise your right hand, you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. We actually rent those out. So some people want to rent an apartment and some people want to rent an apartment and a garage. So having a few buildings on the site, they usually rent up quickly. Some people have 2 cars or fancy cars and they use them.
Okay.
That's the purpose of them. And I built this project, we built it with Tom in a lot of towns in this area and in the state, and we always put brick and or stone on it. And then the last project, we did exactly your suggestion, and on the side of the building, it's the old Club Benet site. We put stone all the way up at the top, the part that faced the road. So it's in our interest to build nice stuff. We'd be glad to show you all the ones we've built in the last few years.
Do you ever put brick in the rear of those buildings?
No. I never put brick on the back of the buildings. The part that faces the road and on the sides that face the road, but up to this point we haven't done it in the back.
Why haven't you done that?
It looks good on the front. That's where the people park and face the buildings. And that's where they walk in the front door. That's the part that we put brick on. And so far, because of expense, or we put brick on everything. But we put the brick on the front and often on the side, but we haven't done the rear of the buildings. Brick or stone.
Yeah.
I have a question on the garages. So, it's like a first come, first serve. It's an extra fee to rent the garage. Is that also used for storage? Like, are those people, they're putting storage in there, or boats going in there? Or is it for automobiles? Or
It's for automobiles. We don't police them, but people mostly use them for automobiles.
Okay.
And I think we have 10 extra parking spaces on the site. 5 extra parking spaces on the site.
So 5 of the garages are actually your required parking.
Right, 5 of them are part of the required parking.
But suppose nobody wants to rent one.
Excuse
You
me?
don't have enough parking.
I'll lower the price.
Yeah, lower the price.
The garages are always taken very quickly.
I have a question, Bill. Question on the dimensions of the garage.
Right.
You know, with them being 9 feet wide, is that? I mean, it's walls there. It's not like a parking space next to a parking space. You got a 2-door car or something. Is that enough room to open a door?
They're 11.8 by 19.
Yeah, they're 11.
They're pretty good size.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is need revision. Thank
Small
you.
print.
Or 11.9 maybe. No, 11.8.
11.8.
11.8 by 19.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
If there's any other questions that the board members have, any questions that the consultants have, I don't think the review letters really commented on the architecture, so.
Now, the one thing that the board has always required on the architectural plans, not only the materials be shown, but the colors of the materials, as specific as possible, be shown on the plans.
You mean,
They're going to be held
you mean
in that
describe-
rendering.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so the colorized renderings that we'll bring, or we'll show for the next meeting, will depict the colors.
Right,
Of
and
course,
labeled so that there's
and
no
labeled
issues.
as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Can I ask that you also include, I assume that there's a color or whatever, because eventually the construction department is gonna have copies not of the colored renderings, but of the plans, so that they'll be able to know what the requirement is in terms of the color, just the word and the number or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Usually,
we-
if you have a manufacturer in mind, the manufacturer will have a color code
Yep.
for each item, for the brick and for the.
Yeah, the selections actually can be made.
Yeah.
We can sit down with the owner and the construction group and actually select the type of brick, whatever it
Yeah.
might be, and what, you know, it's going to be a red-brown brick, something like this. It's,
Yeah, that's what I said, if that could be put on the plans, and it's, or equal,
Okay.
you know, not just say it has to
Mhm.
be this company, this color, but this company, this is what it's gonna look like, this company, this color is gonna look like that.
sure, that can be provided, yeah.
Okay.
hmm
I don't have anything further with this witness.
Mr. Chairman, should we open it up to
Up
the public?
Okay. Is there anyone out there that,
Well, if you want to come up, you can only ask questions now, no testimony. But come up and you can sit right here, okay? And state your name
Just,
for the record, please.
My name is Christine Amato.
And
I'm
where
a
do you
resident.
live
Clearview Drive
in the township?
in the Township of Ocean, yes.
Okay.
I'm a little late to this probably, but last we were notified there were only 48 units. When did that go up to 72?
A different site, the 48 was a different,
Oh,
Site.
so this is a whole new.
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, and when is the expected date of completion?
The questions are going a little bit beyond this witness,
Right.
but I think it's, if you want to answer of, I mean, how soon could you pull building permits and be under construction if everything goes well?
We're dependent on getting certain permits and approvals from this board.
Okay.
As the engineer asked before about all of our other permits, we actually have every other permit necessary. So that'll be dictated by, as soon as we get approval here, we're gonna start and build right away. From the beginning of construction, it'll probably take a year before it's completely done and the parking lot's top paved and the flowers are planted.
John, while you're there, if you don't mind, Mr. Kazuo, I just wanted to ask him a question. Are you planning on a phasing scheme for this in any way, like open, say, the most northerly building before you open the more southerly? Because if you are, it'd be a good idea to put on your plans. Otherwise, like, the entire site has to be done before you can open a building.
We're not planning any phasing scheme. We're gonna build the whole project at one time.
Any other questions?
Oh no, that's it for now.
Thank you.
thank you.
I have a quick question, Mr. Urbani. You said that you have all your permits, everything's been done. Phase 1 is completed?
Yes.
Any remediation to be done?
The remediation has been completed. We have an LSRP for the program, and that's all done, except if there's any intrusion barriers that have to be done during construction of the building. Everything else is
In
completed.
other words, all the coring samples that came up there, you've done all that.
Done, taken away the other
Or
material,
recycles, okay.
been witnessed, did the whole thing. We've been working on it
Great.
for about a year.
Okay, we will close the commentary section
Yeah, for this particular
for
witness.
this particular
yes.
witness, yes.
That's the architect only.
The argument, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, what? I think we need, the planner relies on the engineer. I think we just need the engineer to go. You, okay? Okay.
Raise your right hand, please. Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Counsel?
Could you give the board the benefit of your background and experience in civil engineering?
Name, please.
Yes, my name is Joshua Hanrahan, and I have a BS in civil engineering from the University of Pittsburgh. I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey since 2009. I work at the firm of Hammerland Engineering. I have 12 years of civil engineering design experience, and I've testified before several boards in the state of New Jersey, not this particular board.
I asked that the board accept him as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
This board will, thank you.
Could you give the board a presentation regarding the site plans that have been submitted for this application?
Yeah, I think I should refer back to the site rendering.
Yes.
Normally I would give more of a overview of the surrounding area and talk more about the unit breakdown, but I think that's been pretty well covered. We can go back to that if we need to. But this aerial plan, the rendering plan with the aerial background, also we showed the development for the Cindy Lane family housing over here, and you can see their basin location and the location of theirs two buildings as it relates to our site. The utilities for this particular site, the gas, electric, and the water service will be taken from the dead end of Clearview Drive into the site. There is a hot box enclosure proposed for the water service over here at the southeast corner of the site next to the tot lot area. As we discussed, the two 5-car 1-story garages on the south side of the site, the 3 buildings with the reverse P loop parking lot.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Can you either stand on the other side or stand back on the
Yeah,
side?
sorry.
All good. Thank you.
And the access to the site is gained from a boulevard drive with 2 20-foot drives and a 6-foot median landscape island coming off of the end of Cindy Lane. Next to that, in the northeast corner of the site, is a sand bottom infiltration basin that will handle the stormwater. Get into the stormwater a little bit is this basin is used to mitigate the stormwater runoff reductions and also to treat for water quality to meet the 80% TSS removal. It also handles recharge, but this site isn't required for that because it's in the PA1 planning area and it's also a previously developed site. Let's see what else. There's also a small manufactured treatment device at the start of the boulevard because there were some areas of the driveway that we weren't able to capture that free flow. So we have to treat the entire pavement area of the site at 80%. So to get that extra treatment, we did have a small manufactured treatment device that ties into the existing storm sewer over there. The sanitary sewer service runs along the driveway here, collecting the stub outs from all 3 buildings, and then goes down the boulevard drive and ties into an existing sanitary sewer manhole within the intersection here that accesses the town lot. And the sanitary sewer runs through this site and down St. Rogers Lane towards the brook over there. Landscaping, you can see, is pretty well buffered to the residential properties to the south, and we have more buffering here to the east. And I wanted to show a revised concept plan that we did after my discussions with Mr. Fitzgerald that show we're going to push the boulevard 11 feet to the north, and we're going to keep the sidewalk on the south side of the boulevard but have 3-to-1 grading down, and that'll allow more room for buffers over there. I know that was a comment of the planner, so we can buffer this with a staggered row of evergreens, and our wall is flipped to the other side along the infiltration basin. So that's how we've address some of the concerns that Mr. Fitzgerald had with the awkward intersection here, and it's also going to help with our grading and allow us to fan out the grades a little bit more and get closer to we're trying to achieve a 5% slope coming into the site, and we're going to pull our inlets back. Yes. Lighting, I think, was pretty well covered. We've met the requirements for the lighting. We understand the comment of the building mounted lights, so we can definitely provide a fixture with a full cutoff. We talked about permits before. We've met with New Jersey American Water. They've approved our design, so we're ready to go ahead with our service application. We have our freehold soil certification. We have the wetlands permit for the disturbance of the isolated wetlands here and disturbance of the wetlands buffer for this isolated wetland area. We have our treatment works approval for the sewer service from the DEP, and we also have preliminary and tentative approval from the Township of Ocean Sewerage Authority. So other than this board, we also have county approval. Other than this board, we have pretty much all of our permits in hand already.
With regard to the phase one and the subsequent remediation, did you get a letter of no further action?
I would have to defer to Mr. Abeen on that.
It's not called no further action anymore. They call it a remediate action outcome, an RAO.
Okay.
That we get. And we've done everything, and I've been told we've cleaned everything and have everything that we need to start construction. We use Atlantic Environmental Services, Mike Novak from Hoboken, and he's got a big environmental firm, and I believe we have every single thing we need to start construction.
Okay, so as a condition of approval, because as I said, it's a permitted use, it's going to be approved at some stage, if not tonight. Can you agree to provide a letter from them stating at the right time that everything has been completed and is ready to go?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just so the town has a permanent record in writing.
Sir, question.
To go over some of the variances that were requested, the earthwork variance for the 2 feet of fill over the site, I think Mr. Fitzgerald touched on that we are locked into a certain elevation for the seasonal high groundwater table, and then the rest of the site is built up slightly. The max amount of fill in any area is 4 feet, but the mean fill over the whole site is actually only 1.25 feet, so it's not really an immense amount of fill, and it's what's required to stay above the seasonal high for the basin. The geotech engineer did, we have contacted them about the mounding analysis, and that was underway this week. It's something that they've been working on short notice, so they weren't able to give us any information for the meeting today. But as soon as we get their analysis, we will forward that to Mr. Fitzgerald for his review. We have designed the basin in accordance with all the regs. We've met the reductions, and we're not proposing any increase to the municipal storm sewer system that we're tying into here at the end of West Cindy Lane. Some of the other variances that were requested was the retaining wall without the buffer here, and if I could, I'd like to show my revised concept plan, and I have handouts that I can give to the board to show what we propose for the boulevard.
Yes.
Yeah, this would be for identification only because it wasn't provided to the board 10 days in advance.
Oh, well, yeah, it wouldn't be ready to be approved, but certainly it's good for discussion purposes because it represents a change to the.
Yes. Thank you. A5, right?
Correct. This should be A5.
Mr. Hanrahan, can you identify specifically for the record what this is?
This will be Exhibit A5. This is the revised boulevard concept plan.
And the date on it?
The date on the plan is June 28th, 2017.
Yeah, and before we talk about A5 for technicality purposes, for A4, of course, our architect originally discussed that, and then he was deferring to you about details. Did you prepare A4?
Sorry, which one was A4?
I'm sorry.
A1.
A1, actually.
Yes, A1 was prepared by my office, the site layout rendering plan.
All right, and was that document part of your submittals?
No, that was not part of the submittals. That's only prepared for the hearing.
I recommended, Sandy, as in one of my, I think it was item 7, that they provide something like that so the board can see how this development fits with respect to other existing developments or anticipated developments by way of approval.
So is it fair to say that document A1 was prepared in reaction to the suggestion of our board engineer.
Yes, especially with adding the development here, we wanted to show that overlay as well, and then show the rest of the existing area with an aerial background.
Thanks.
This revised plan that we have is per our discussions with Mr. Fitzgerald, which, as I stated, shows the boulevard entry shifting 11 feet to the north, and the retaining wall would be placed along the detention basin here, and our grading would be eased, and we would pull the inlets back slightly, and this area would open up, and we'd allow ourselves to we would be able to have 3-to-1 grading down to the property line, and put a staggered row of evergreens to provide more screening from this development to the south.
How high is the retaining wall?
This retaining wall?
Yes, yes.
This would be around 4 feet.
Okay, with a 4-foot fence on top of it?
Yes.
Okay, so that's still a variance.
And we were proposing a chain link fence around the basin, but if desired, we could make that a post and rail fence or whatever the town would like to see.
Post and rail would probably be better looking, but the wall and fence combination is still a variance. 'Cause it's
Okay.
10 feet.
All right.
Unless you can separate them by what, Mary? 10 feet?
10 feet, yeah. If you could separate them by 10 feet.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the room there, but we can see. Also, in my discussions with Mr. Fitzgerald, he brought up a good point about the width of the berm. And normally we always show a 10-foot wide berm around these basins because we always end up having the depth that requires that to be classified as what is called a dam. But this actually is less than the 5-foot depth. So this is technically a berm, and we can go down to a 6-foot width per RSIS requirements. So that's how we're going to end up with the same storage volume. It's kind of narrow that berm and use the wall to create more space right along the detention basin. We'll get the same amount of volume. We might even get more volume to reduce the flows.
Can you do something on the western side of the basin adjacent to the parking spaces to provide some landscaping in that area to soften the impact?
Yes, we can definitely provide something.
Okay.
There is sheet flow of runoff from the parking lot though, so I don't want to provide too much landscaping there. But
Even if you did trees up the slope.
yeah, it should be
You
fine.
can handle it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know.
So that's our solution to kind of cleaning up the layout, providing more of a buffer over here, and it helps us, simplify and ease our grading as well. So it kind of solves most of the main problems that were pointed out in the letter. And as I discussed before, I believe Mr. Fitzgerald is okay with our design as a whole, and he agrees with it. We just need to provide the information for the mounding analysis to show the impacts to the groundwater table, which we will provide.
Did you want to walk through the review letters, or do you feel that has the inquiry in your review letters been satisfied by the presentation?
Well, I think we agreed to agree that we need a little more information. I think we probably should have a technical review meeting and then get everything addressed in a new submission and be in and out of here kind of a thing without a lot. I don't think, it's up to the board, but I don't think the board wants to hear us walk through the items in here. That's why.
Okay, that's what I'm asking for, is that.
I think more gets accomplished in a technical review meeting once all the information, even if it's not finalized form, we all have it, we can sit down at the table, hash it out. My main concern, again, is the fact that there is detention basin right across your roadway where they're finding at least a 2-foot water difference, closer in some places to a 4-foot water difference in seasonal high water table elevations. It can't happen in 200 feet. It just doesn't. So we need to resolve it. I think that you're on higher ground in two senses. In the physical sense.
I wasn't sure if that was intentional at first.
In the physical sense, because you're uphill, it's a good thing. But, I mean, we just got to get that resolved, because I can't have either one of these going bad.
Understood.
Bill, would that mounding study help?
Yeah. So I think
so you really need that.
I think your geotech engineer should be at the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. What just to clarify, in response to the review letter and then in response to the communication, that's what we reached out. to the geotech about the mounding analysis. Unfortunately, they weren't able to be here tonight. We don't have any conclusions.
And you'd have to submit the conclusions in advance so that Bill would have time to make a recommendation to the board and the public.
But we could have the technical review meeting as they're proceeding with that stuff. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
looking to put you off a long time on that for any reason. Sooner the better, really.
Mm-hmm.
That way we get it, I don't mean we, but I mean, you have a plan of attack that we've all discussed and said, you know, this should result in something that's worth considering.
We just take 1 minute break?
Sure.
Yeah, before you do that,
Sure.
yeah, there's been some concern expressed about the environmental, of course, and I know, I think Mr. Bean is really the quasi-expert for the night, because our PE is not the environmental engineer, obviously. So with that in mind, Mr. Bean, if I could ask you, did you have any escrow that had to be filed with DEP for any remediation?
I don't believe we filed an escrow.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not aware. We might have. I don't think we have. Atlantic Environmental does a lot of work for me on a lot of projects.
Mm-hmm.
And on LSRP, when they give their approval, then you file with the DEP, but they actually give the approval. And I'll get you all of those paperwork and letter.
So your expert filed the final report that was approved by DEP?
I think they did a report. We did the field work,
Right.
and then they filed the conclusions. Yes.
You filed the conclusions, but you got your final approval from DEP?
Yeah, I don't think you get it from the DEP. I think you get it from the LSRP, the Licensed Site Remediation Professional, who we hired, Atlantic Environmental Services.
Okay,
That
and
was the change that the DEP made.
Make it
yeah,
easier.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's all done through the LSRP.
Got it.
and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
process rather than the.
But I'll get all of those conclusions for your technical review meeting
That'd be great.
whenever you have it.
So there's no existing wells out there anymore, is that right?
There might be a monitoring well, and there might be a requirement to continue monitoring.
Right.
I don't want to get my sites confused, but there was soil that was needed to be taken away, and that was excavated and taken away.
Just a general comment. I don't know how concerned the board might be, but you might want to have your expert available, next time, just in case there are so many questions.
Understood.
Certainly.
Right, yeah,
Probably would be a
children
good
that are
idea
going
to
to be
put that-
playing
it
out
would
on
be a
that.
good idea to put that on the record anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
I have one real quick question for
He
the
wants a
engineer.
1 minute break.
Any problem?
There was no other questions. So.
Any
problem moving those garages 5 feet to the south?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. There is enough space for a 20-foot backup coming out of this top garage here, but
Yeah,
we
I
can.
know there is. It's a little bit tight.
Yeah,
It's still a little
we
bit
can
tight.
slide it down
Yeah.
5 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Council.
Ready to take your break?
Yeah,
Would you like to
Take 10 minutes though?
adjourn for 10 minutes?
1 minute always turns into 10 anyway, so in
All right.
my experience.
Be back here in 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we can reconvene, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman and members of the board. I think this may be brief at this point. I think we've probably gone as far as we can go tonight. I know that the board engineer did request a technical review committee meeting, both in his review letter and also was reiterated here this evening. There were some modifications made, proposed to be made to the plans in response to the review letter. So rather than trying to deal with these technical issues tonight in front of the board, I think I'll take the board up on the board's engineer's suggestion of doing a technical review committee, and if we could carry this to the next meeting without further notice. I don't know when the board's next meeting is. I don't know what
The
the
next
agenda
meeting
looks
is-
like. I knew they were going to look at you.
Next meeting is July the 24th. That would mean that you'd have to have the review, the TRM before that, and get the revisions here by the 14th. So today is the 29th. that's 15 days, and we have already
Sounds very tough.
3 applications on for the 24th, but
Would you like to
Could-
try for August?
Well, what I was gonna say is, could we do it for the July meeting, and if we don't make it, we could send a letter adjourning it, or we can contact you, and you could just provide notice at that meeting to carry it
That
to
would be fine.
August.
Right.
fine.
Does the board always meet in August? I don't know. Some boards
Need,
Oh, yes.
clockwork.
2 or 3 times in August.
yeah.
You may have your choice, sir.
And so you'll
You
grant
got
the
better things to
consent.
do.
Wait until those October.
Yes, yes, we'll extend the deadline up until
A lot.
the end of July. I don't think we're actually even up against the deadline yet, but you can correct me if I'm
Well-
wrong.
We do
on
it
that.
just in case we don't have a quorum or something like that.
Under-
The
oh,
August
you-
meeting is earlier, it's not the end of the month this year, it's at the 14th, so it
Okay.
might make that a little bit more
How
palatable.
about if we make the consent until the next time you appear, whether or not that's at the July or August meeting?
That's fine.
So what do you want me to put here?
I have a question, if I can, please.
Sure.
Will there be any
Be on the record.
discussion regarding traffic
Uh,
and the impact of this development?
That was one of the issues that was mentioned in the review letter. We were not prepared to present testimony regarding traffic. This is a permitted use. So therefore the traffic volumes are, considered part of the underlying zoning. We can provide information and discussion regarding our contact with the county regarding traffic.
What we'd probably be looking for the record, is just trip generation. As I said in my report,
Yeah, we can
Right.
provide that information.
because we have a number of people sharing small costs on a small project to just try to help some of the traffic in that area, rather than have one person get hit for all of it. One property owner has paid for an intersection plan at West Park and Cindy, which could be shared with the county. There's some signage going in, some striping going in, and we may request a little donation based on the amount of traffic you generate. It's not a realignment of the road. It's a little bit of curbing and striping and signage. But it would all be based on fair, traffic counts.
The fair share.
Yeah.
John,
And
John, yours.
Yeah, question. I also
heavy duty project.
I also have another question. In Mr. Higgins' report, it says that the very low income units. I don't know if that's the architect or the engineer. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know that
It
that ever got
winds up
addressed.
being 1 unit by my calculation. It would have to be very low income, but we just need something, a stipulation by the attorney on the record that one of them would be very low income.
Okay, it hadn't been discussed, so.
Hadn't been, no.
We would, there's a settlement agreement that requires us to provide the certain percentage of moderate income, low income, and very low income. That was actually not getting too technical, but there was an amendment to the Fair Housing Act that required the municipality to do.
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, you're familiar with it, so it's 13% of the affordable units, which I believe is
Comes out to
one
be
unit.
1.45 of 13.
1.1
Oh,
unit,
so
so
we-
we will do that.
Okay.
We'll stipulate to that.
One
Bear
sure
with me
addressed.
just one more second on this. With the 72 units, the traffic study or whoever did, they're basically saying it's allowable because of the way it's zoned?
Correct.
And
Yes.
even though the impact to West Park Avenue,
The
Is
courts,
that
the
considered?
courts have said if it's a permitted use, that you can't deny it because of the traffic generation. But you can require a fair share contribution to try and correct situations to make the traffic better.
wow, okay.
That's why
Anyone else on the board? Mr. Riley, you can.
Yeah, I thank you for, I just would like to make a request. As I indicated at the beginning of this, my client's objections are one related to the traffic, but more primarily the stormwater problems in the area. It's come about that there's gonna be a technical review meeting. I did have a discussion during the break with the engineer, and he's familiar with Mr. Varro, as you may recall. He's a fairly technical guy. The thought that I had, which I think would save a lot of time before the board, is if he could attend the technical review I'm not saying I want to show up, but he and or his engineer, if he gets a drainage engineer, and he may, attend that meeting. And rather than have all the back and forth before you in a month or a month and a half or 2 months, a lot of it, I think, could be hashed out in that meeting.
Mr. Riley, we have no problem with that.
And
You
I-
can go right ahead and.
All right, Mr.
You
Fedorov
relay that.
advise us and,
Well,
Can I just, I wanna check something. Are you asking so that, for the scheduling, does he have to be available, you know,
he'll be available whenever you guys.
I know that he's away though, so that's
Well,
why
he's
I'm
away
asking.
right this week, but, you know, he'll make himself available.
Got it.
I mean, I realize it's not gonna center around his availability.
I said we can talk with him separately, but we're not gonna agree to meet with him, with the board's professionals, simultaneously. We're the applicant, we're entitled to
Why not?
have this meeting. Why not?
Yeah. What, I mean,
Because I've been down this road many times.
I understand, but personally, I'd rather you guys fight this out rather than wasting the rest of the board's time with the shenanigans we saw tonight. So that's my opinion, Chairman. I'm just.
You're entitled to it.
He's not gonna disrupt anything. I think you've seen him here. He's a businessman in town, and he's frankly.
This is the owner of the auto
owner
shop.
of the auto repair
Right.
facility, Mike Rivero. And,
Right, I remember him.
I do.
He has concerns regarding
He
drainage.
has legitimate concerns, and frankly, rather than spend all your time and get into a brouhaha here, it's a lot better to do it that way.
Well, I also say, note for the record that Mr. Riley indicated he may not attend.
No, I'm
If
not. I don't plan to attend unless.
Well, if
anybody
I'm in
insists.
attendance, then, you know, that would be improper. Do attorneys attend these?
Not, well, go ahead, Bill.
Not typically, but if no one's saying you can't, I said not typically, they have, and in which case, if we just have Sandy come.
Ben's always there. No?
We don't carry the pay grade that you guys.
You know, Mr. Kasuba, you know, we've never had this issue come up, I don't think, about a request by an objector.
No, but I mean, we've met on site.
Yeah.
Certainly, we've met on an applicant's site with neighbors and.
We've actually, no, we have had technical review meetings in the recent
Yes, we
past
have.
with-
Actually,
with an
we have. Yeah, we
objector
have
present, and it
with
worked
an
out
application that's current.
Very, very well. It's,
Was that with the consent of?
Yes.
yes.
All right.
But
So
if you don't consent to it, I mean, look, I just.
that's what I'm going to get at.
Way to work out the issues in an easy way.
I'm really not aware of what the Cox Treatise states. I don't think there's anything in the MLUL on it, but I do think there is logic to what Mr. Kasuba is saying. If he wants to take the position, because it's his money, his applicant's money, that he will refuse to have a meeting with an objector present there, and regardless of what the recommendations of the board is. I actually have to agree with Mr. Kasuba, but Mr. Kasuba and his client may very well want to meet before, after, with Mr. Bavaro, is that right? And I think that's the way we should probably leave it, in my humble opinion.
If I can suggest, maybe it would be most productive if we're going to have the technical review meeting begin between the applicants, professionals, and me. We should do that first, and then it may give them some indication of what they want to have together when you guys go meet with Mr. Barrera without me. It's fine. I don't know, but I'm just trying to get the
I'm just
issues
trying
on the
to-
table
I'm
and
just
get
trying
them
to
clear.
save a lot of aggravation. To me, it's,
I understand.
you know, it's a no-brainer. It's not gonna be, if it doesn't work out, you're gonna make the call in the end. It's just one way to deal with it, because it is kind of a technical argument to a certain extent, and frankly, I'm sure you don't wanna referee something like that.
And I think substantively, if you've seen over the decades in your long career, Mr. Riley, and Mr. Kasuba too, he must be younger than us, don't you think? Yeah, but you know, it certainly behooves an applicant to listen to an objector to see if there can be a resolution. I don't know if that has to be part of a tech review meeting though, and you know, if everybody can come back with a resolution, that's good for everybody. So I think
Understood.
if you can be guided that way, and maybe Mr. Riley, you want to contact Mr. Kasuba if you want to have a meeting of the minds. Why don't you try to do it that way?
I'll just note for the record that notices went out regarding this application. This is the first that I've heard from Mr. Riley. He could have given a call any point in time.
Sure. No, I think they're going to resolve things. That's
Well,
my.
I'm not sure where we're left. I mean, we can't or can be. It can be.
Can't be. Well, that's my suggestion. I'm only attorney.
I'm gonna have to go with Mr. Brown's suggestion on that, Mr. Riley.
And you have to take his advice.
Yeah.
If Mr. Kasuba wants to meet with you or your client separately, or however you want to handle it.
Understood.
Is there? I guess my last question would be: is there going to be an updated stormwater report based on this technical review?
Mr. Riley, we understand that you're not picking up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess my question is there going to be an updated stormwater report that's going to come out of this technical review meeting? Because obviously our main interest is stormwater.
If not an updated report, there'll certainly be an addendum, which addresses the issues that we raised out there. So there will be, it will not, what's there now, what's in the file now, will have to be supplemented.
Okay.
And it will be prior to the next hearing,
Okay.
10 days before, at least.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Riley.
Okay.
Mr. Kasuba?
If we're going to carry the application to the next meeting of July 24th without further notice, I need to sign something.
Correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The board agrees that there's no requirement of notice for the next meeting. Correct?
That's correct.
What's today? The 29th? Thank you.
July.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got more to do.
Nothing else,
We
right?
have more to do, I think.
Nothing else for this evening, Mr. Chairman?
We have more stuff to do.
Any longer?
In the minutes.
Let's try to try that.
We can start with the minor site plan subcommittees. There are 3 on your agenda. The,
Sorry to interrupt. Do you require the exhibits to be left here, or should we take them with us?
you have to leave anything that we
Here?
mark.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. There were 3 minor site plan subcommittee applications initially. We are down to only 2. West Park Manor needed to look into further some of the comments in Bill's report. They sent me an email today asking that they be carried to July the 24th. They're planning to remove their swimming pool, and the details as to what was going to happen were not clear. So they are working with their engineer to come back probably on the 24th.
I haven't obviously seen the comments of Bill on that application, Mary Ann.
Yeah.
Is it out of line just to ask what if they want to do at this point? I know.
Yeah, well, they
send
said
it
they
back.
want to fill in their swimming pool.
And
That's the and is the problem. There's a building there that they have to identify what the uses are, because if the pool's not there, what's this building going to be used for? Bill had some issues about whether the bottom of the pool would be removed or the sides also.
let me ask this: are they going to build another pool, or they're just going to abandon having a pool at the complex?
That would be correct.
Okay, I got to talk to, because I think that requires, as far as I'm concerned, that's not a minor site plan. I mean, I don't want to belabor the issue now.
Under
but it's
our
like-
ordinance, it does fit the definition of that approval. The 3 subcommittee members, if they don't feel comfortable, they don't have to be unanimous, and then it would go to the full board for hearing.
Let me rephrase it. I think we should have some concerns beyond the minor site plan application with something like this.
Again, that's fine, it's just not ready yet.
Okay,
So we'll try again next month.
all right, I'll speak to you later about it then.
Got it.
Okay.
So we do have two applications. One is for Cordoba Ocean LLC. It's a property that's on Allenhurst Avenue, 1312 Allenhurst Avenue. Used to be Phoenix Realty quite a while ago, which I thought was funny because Al Casson was in here and he was one of the proprietors there, the owner, but he wasn't here for that one. In any case, Jim did a report. The idea was they needed to provide one more parking space on their site so that they could lease the building to a Catholic Charities group that does counseling services. And that becomes some medical issues and they were short one space. So Jim provided a report. We sent it to the subcommittee members. In this case, it was John, Estelle, and Tony. And they agreed with Jim's report. There's the regular conditions, but Jim suggested, and it was agreed by the subcommittee members, that revised plans be submitted for Jim's approval, that make sure that the parking spaces are 10 feet wide, which will expand the pavement of a row about 5 feet to the east. They have to provide a detail of the proposed pavement. All pavement and curbs will be subject to inspection by the township engineer, and that there be a landscape plan submitted, because the site is pretty old and some of the areas are not really well maintained at this point. That was the recommendation from all subcommittee members, that they were satisfied with the requirements that Jim stated, and so they recommended it unanimously to this board.
Somebody offer?
Can I?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Brody?
Mr. Chia?
Sure, yes, sorry.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
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 Yes. Sure.
Yes.
The last subcommittee is for property at 312 Sherman Avenue. The owner is Mr. Franco. There was a quite large house and tennis court and all those kinds of things that was built there over the last few years. And unfortunately, a number of trees that were required to be saved have disappeared and or died. So Jim did a report, and it's very difficult after the fact to figure out what the problem was. Was it one of the things that we always have concern about when there are big old trees and you're doing brand new construction, is if the big equipment drives back and forth over the roots, it tends to kill the trees because of the compaction. In any case, they want to get off their bond, so that we're trying to come up with a compromise plan. What Jim suggested for the approval, that revised plans must be submitted for review and approval, would show the location of 7 trees and specifies their caliper as a minimum of 4 inches at 1 foot above the root crown, as required in the report of the board planner dated June 20th. And then I added that those trees would have to be planted no later than October 15th of this year. What you should know is they did submit as part of this a report from a certified tree expert who did talk about that literally some of the trees were so dead now that they were hazardous. And so a few of those, they were there a few weeks ago, and I told them to take them down. I didn't want somebody hurt by a tree coming down that we had a report, but some of the other ones will now have to be removed because they are really unhealthy. So that was what was sent to the subcommittee members, and there was a recommendation that we draw up a resolution. Questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the resolution is for what?
They're gonna plant 7 new trees. They already had to plant, do you remember how?
They planted a number of new trees.
They might have
Yeah.
planted, when the original approval came in about 4 years ago, they had a tree replanting schedule based on the house and everything. I may have the exact number wrong, but it was in excess of 20 new trees were planted back then. Now we're trying to get what exists now compared to what was approved then and what existed then, and get something that comes together.
So you want to make up that 7 that are gone or died or whatever
Yes.
to replant?
Yes.
Yeah, basically, there were 21 trees that were to have been saved initially, and 10 of those trees still exist, so there was a shortage of 11. And they planted probably 7 or 8 additional trees since then, so even with these 7 new trees, they're probably planting more than they were required to.
Okay.
But it was so difficult to figure out what was going on. The plans were there were 3 sets of plans, they were all inconsistent. Took me probably 4 times longer to figure this out than it would have normally.
I'm going to tell you, it's taken us 4 years to get this far. One of the I will say good thing about this is we were able to hold the line. Oftentimes, people would prefer to just pay money to the shade tree fund, but I think in this neighborhood, the character is most definitely of large trees. So I know that 4-inch caliper is not going to look like anything for a few years, but they do grow relatively quickly. And so we're hoping that that will work in this case.
I'll make,
Fred Brody. Fred Brody offered.
Yep. I'll second. I'll do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Indisano?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
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 Close?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Just didn't want me to forget the minutes. I knew you wouldn't let me forget. Okay, so we're finished with the subcommittees, now the minutes, and then you're through. Rachel, you wanna call those?
I'll make a motion if I can. I'll second it if I can. Yes.
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 Which one?
Motion
I'll
is-
offer if I can.
I'll second, if I can.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
April what?
24th.
A motion, please?
I'll make a motion if I can.
Who was that, Mr. Becky?
Yes.
No, you're not.
I remove that motion then.
You can't. Good try, though.
I'll offer if I
Bingo.
can.
Bad bingo.
Yes, it was. Okay.
I'll second it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 I'll make a motion if I can. I remove that motion. You're done.
One more
I'm
strike.
done. I'll give it a try. I'll make the motion.
You wasted time.
Good try. Make a motion here tonight.
I will.
Okay, second.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Mr. Trapp?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Good?
Yes.
Close?
Yes.
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 Meeting is adjourned.
All in favor?
The condition of that pool at that place, I want to stay today.
Well, have a good Fourth.